Hi there, this is Jonathan Gorman from iCreative, and today we're going to talk about all the wonderful editing features built into iPhone. And one of the things that I love to talk about is editing photos simply because there's so much that you can do on iPhone. So I've got a handful of images here. I'm going to start with this one at the bottom, and I wanted to show a couple of the basic editing features. And then we're going to talk about a really neat feature called Markup. So to get started, if I have an existing image like this one, I'm going to tap on the word Edit, top right. And if you have ever seen the camera app, you'll know that a lot of the features and functions are very, very similar, and the layout is very similar in the camera app as it is to the Photos app and what we're seeing here. Mainly that at the bottom, you'll see those little ticker lines, and if we just call that the ruler, for lack of a better term, that is something that you can drag your finger across to slide and see the effects of what you're doing in real time. So let's take this very first tool at the bottom underneath the word Auto, and that is the button for the magic wand. So the magic wand does a variety of little tweaks to this image without any real interaction from us. It's just going to look at what's there and try to, make its best guesses as to what this photo needs. So I'm just going to tap on it once. And it looks like it brightened it up a little bit. It didn't do anything like super dramatic, but the point isn't how much or little we like what it has done. The point is that if you look to the right of the magic wand, which is now illuminated white, you'll notice that there are little tiny yellow lines and the circles around the tools to the right of it. And that's giving us some indication as to how much or how little of that particular setting it changed. So in the case of this second tool, if I tap on it, that's the exposure tool. And you can see there's a little teeny yellow line above that plus and minus in the circle, and that's showing us that it bumped it up just a little bit in terms of that setting. If I tap on the next circle for brilliance, it bumped that up, quite a bit. If you look above the ruler, there's a little dot, and the dot is actually representing 0, where there's no change in terms of what it's done with that particular tool. And in this case, it did bump it up quite a bit, maybe 25%, and that's why the line is right underneath that, and the dot is now to the left. So if I slide alongside, you're going to see that all these little tick values are going to jump up to 25, 26. And the best part of this slide feature is that now the goal is for us to be able to slide and not look at the slider or the ruler, but to actually look at the image, because now I can see the changes that I'm making in real time. It's really, really amazing what they've done. This is all software doing all this incredible work for us. Let's look at the next one, highlights. So highlights, it removed a little bit of highlights, because I can see that my line where the highlight tool is to the left of the dot. Now at the dot, I'm right at 0, and if I go down, well, now let's just have a look and see this. The changes are very subtle. My eyes are just not really what they used to be. But what a neat trick. And so I'm going to tap on the next one, which is shadows. Let's see what sliding that around does. Yeah, it kind of almost looks like exposure changes. But it is really, if you look in the bushes in sort of the bottom right of the photo, you can see some pretty dramatic changes happening as I slide this. What's really wild is just the number of tools that we have. Contrast, watch this. This one should really bring us some interesting changes. If you look at the green bushes above the wall, kind of in the center foreground, you'll notice that those guys are going to change kind of dramatically as I do this. It's really wild. Brightness, of course, in this picture is going to be a big deal simply because there's so much light coming at me. So if I actually reduce this a little bit, the sun all of a sudden doesn't seem to be so stark, and that's a pretty cool thing to know about. Let's jump up to black point. Oh wow, yeah, that's also kind of doing what seems to be sort of exposure type effects to the image. But wow, that's pretty wild. Next up is saturation. If I do saturation, this is really going to affect a lot of the color settings, and you're going to see that the colors are becoming a lot more vibrant. That's actually really doing some great things. Next up is vibrance and warmth. Warmth is also going to typically have a pretty big impact on the colors. Tint, sharpness. These last few are pretty subtle. Definition, noise reduction, and vignette. Oh, vignette is really cool because with vignette, you can make it look like an old school picture where it's kind of a little bit shady around the edges, gives it that sort of circle of shadow around the image. So needless to say, as I drag through all of these, when I tap on the magic wand, it's going to make a handful of changes for me to all of those tools. Now, once it does that, there's nothing wrong with me going into any one of these particular ones if I thought it needed a little bit more contrast. With all of the changes that it's already made, I can keep those existing changes, but now I can actually drag this up or down and keep the changes but have a little bit more contrast on top of the magic wand settings that it's already made. Now, if I don't do the magic wand at all, okay, if I just say done and click on edit again, I can actually revert to my changes. So this is the result of my handiwork a moment ago. I'm going to hit on revert to bring this guy back to the original. Okay, wow, that's a big change. And so now when I go into edit mode again, I don't actually have to hit the magic wand at all to invoke a lot of these tools. I can just start cruising through any one of them and starting literally from scratch. So maybe I just thought this guy needed a little bit more contrast. And once I've selected the actual tool, now my goal is to go down into the ruler and start to drag this left and right. So it's really fun to kind of get in there and play with a lot of these settings because it's simply a matter of selecting the tool and then using the ruler beneath it to slide left or right to get real-time feedback for how that is going to physically impact the image itself, which I think is so cool. It's instant notification, if you will. It's instant gratification because you can really see what it's going to do. So get in there and play with those. Those are really, really neat features. The next thing I want to talk about is at the bottom in the center. There's those three little circles, and what I want to do is start first with the one to the right, which is our crop button. So I'm going to click on done. I'm going to click on edit. I'm going to revert back to our original. And now I'm going to go to edit again. And this time I'm going to tap on the crop button. Now, crop has a couple of really cool functions. The first one right there in the middle, in the bottom, above my ruler, is the one that allows us to straighten. And this is so, so, so important in a lot of images. It looks like my ground in the distance may be a little bit to the right. And so now if I drag my slider, I'm actually able to change to make it really true and make it really level. I think that's about right, so I'm going to leave it right there. Now, the white lines that are the borders of the image are also draggable, so I can just drag these guys up and I can edit anything that I want. I can even, you can see when I'm starting to drag them around, I even get a little bit more room at the top of the image. So anything that I can actually see is game for me to extend or reduce my borders. That's really, really handy. I can even pull on the corners themselves, and I can do two axes at once, which can be kind of handy. And when I'm done, I can just click on the word done. Now, if I look at the bottom of the screen on the tool that says 0 currently and is highlighted in yellow, the next tool to the right of that is really wild. And when I select this one, this is going to do a vertical sort of dimensional thing. So if I slide up, this is kind of stretching the foreground toward me. If I drag it above the dot, above 0, it's going to drag the top toward me, which is really wild. This can be kind of a neat way to correct some of the editing. Sometimes you take a picture of something that you want it to be very square, and when you start to edit it, you realize that it's kind of, its edges have become a little bit goofy. So this can be a great trick for combating that. And then this next tool is the same exact thing, but just going left to right. So I can pull the right side out, and I can pull the left side out. I mean, it's just incredible what is possible on iPhone. Top left, the little triangles with the arrows above it, that's just going to flip this around entirely. So it's going to make it backwards. If someone looked like they were shaking hands with their left hand, you can tap on that and it'll pop it around, and suddenly they look like they're shaking with their right hand. So that can be really handy in certain situations. And it's just that easy. The one to the right of that with the box with the arrow in the top left corner, that is going to allow me to just flip it by 90 degrees, which can be nice if you took it in portrait and meant to be in landscape. The auto to the right of the word auto on the top right, this is also going to allow me to choose all kinds of different frames. Now if you look at the bottom, it's original, freeform, square, 16 by 9. This is a really easy way to kind of instantly crop things that may fit a little bit better into a different format. Okay, so now to get rid of that, I'm going to tap on the yellow icon of it to the right of auto at the top. So in the very top right hand corner was yellow. I tap on that again and that gets rid of it. So that is the crop tool, which I think is so powerful and so incredibly easy to use that I think you'll find that you're going to use that one quite a bit. Now in the very bottom of the screen, the 3 circles are what I'm going to talk about next. And the 3 circles are the filters. This is the filter button. I think this is a really neat thing to jump in and use as well. It's very fast. It gives a whole new life to your image in any number of ways. If I tap on that middle button, you're going to see that my slider starts at original, and then as I kind of pull through them, it's adding all these wonderful color schemes to my image, so I can maybe just pick something that looks more appropriate. Another great way to use this is that toward the end there's these last 3, and these are all versions of kind of a black and white. And these can be a lot of fun to play with. Sometimes you take a portrait of somebody and they just look great in black and white. So all I'm doing is using that slider tool to accomplish this. If I'm satisfied with what I've done, then I can just hit the word done on the bottom and it saves it. If for any reason I don't like what I've done, let's say I selected this warm one, vivid warm, and I say done. And then later I decide that I kind of, I've had second thoughts about this particular processing. I'm going to tap on edit in the top right. And now I can click on revert. And it's going to just let me pull this all the way back to the original with no modification at all. And that's what the photo looked like when I actually took it. So going back into edit mode, I'm going to tap on edit in top right. And the last one that I want to talk about is on the left, which is just the little, it looks like a little dial button. And that one is going to allow me to kind of cruise through and make changes with all these wonderful little tools. So I can either choose to use the auto or the magic wand button, or I can just simply drag from right to left and select the tool that I'd like to use, and then I just use the slider to watch it impact my image. I'm going to create a completely separate video on the Markup Tool, and the Markup Tool is in the top right hand corner, these 3 little dots, and it's going to say Markup right there, and you'll see the little icon for Markup. It looks like a pencil inside of a circle to the right of the word Markup, And that is a great thing to know about if you're on Mac or on iPad. Wherever you see that, you can add the markup tools, which we're going to talk about in our next video. I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in.